For this video, we're going to be talking about the measurement units of area and their conversions. And so here's our formula for area. Area, which represents an A, equals the length, which is an L, times the width, which is the W. And we're going to talk about the English system, which uses this formula. So let's take a look at the first example. It says, find the area of a rectangle. So let's go ahead and make a rectangle here. So there's a rectangle. And it has a length of 14 feet. So a length goes horizontally like this. So we'll label that 14. There's two lengths, so we'll just label one of them 14 for now. And a width of 2.5 feet. And the width goes vertically, so we'll write 2.5 for this width. And so we only need to know one length and one width. We know that this length is also 14 and this width is also 2.5. And so now we have all the information to plug into our formula to find area. And what area is, if we look at this rectangle, area is everything that's inside, all the space inside of the yellow line or that yellow rectangle. So if you think of the yellow line like a fence going around your rectangle, everything inside that fence is your area. So maybe you wanted to plant grass inside that fence line. So we could figure that out. By doing that, we use our formula here. So let's go ahead and plug in the values, what we know. Area is the length, which is 14, times the width, which is 2 and 1/2. And so when I look at this problem, notice I have a mixed fraction here, or a mixed number. So I'm going to change that into an improper fraction by taking the whole number and multiplying it to the current denominator. So that's 2 times 2, and I'll pull that off to the side. 2 times 2 is 4. And then I'm going to add that answer of 4. I'm going to add it to my numerator. And so numerator was 1, so I'm going to add 2 times 2, which is 4, and add it to my numerator, which is 1, and I get a 5. So 5 is my current numerator. And I go back here and I highlight the original denominator, so 2 goes down here for my denominator. So 2 and 1/2 converts into an improper fraction of 5/2 times the whole number of 14. And so anytime you want to make a whole number a fraction, you just need to put a 1 underneath it. So it's 14 over 1. So now I'm ready to go ahead and multiply these fractions. And so when multiplying fractions, you can cross-cancel or cross-divide here. Does a number divide into 1 and 5? Well, a 1 does, but a 1 doesn't reduce anything down because 1 divides into 1 once and 1 divides into 5 times. So nothing changes. So we go across here. Does anything divide into 14 and 2? And that answer is yes. A 2 divides into 14 and 2. 2 will divide into both these even numbers. So a 2 divides into 2. 2 divides into 2 one time, so I'll replace that with a 1. And 2 divides into 14 7 times, so we'll replace the 14 with a 7. So now if I multiply straight across for the numerator, 7 times 5 is 35, and for the denominators, 1 times 1 is 1. So that's my answer for the area. So another way of writing this answer is area. Notice it's 35 over 1. That is the same thing as just 35. And we're going to label this feet. And because we're talking about area, we're finding units in area, you need to label that squared. And so that squared symbol, that little 2, it's an exponent, FT, and that 2's raised, that tells us that we're finding the area. And so this represents 35 squared feet, or feet squared, however you want to say it. But it's better to write it 35. We're going to write it in words squared feet. So that's the area of a rectangle. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the metric system. Talk about area with this. So km represents 1,000, that's a kilometer. HM represents a hectometer, that's 100. DAM is 10, that's a decameter. M is 1, and that's a meter. DM is 0.1, which is a decimeter. CM is a centimeter, and that's 0.01, and mm is a millimeter, and that's 0.001, and that's in the thousandths place and the hundredths place and the tenths place. And so now what I'm going to do is I have 125 millimeters. Notice it's squared. That tells us, it gives us a clue that we're talking about area. And so here's millimeters. And we want to convert this to centimeters. And notice I move one place. And one place is the same thing as a 10. And notice places, when we're talking about moving one place, is see the 0? The 0 tells us how many places that is. And so since I moved over one place, that's why we see 1 0. That's why it's a 10. If I moved over 2 places, you would see 2 zeros, and you would make that 100. 3 places, you would see 3 zeros, and that would be 1,000. So because we're moving one place, we have a 10, and now we're talking about area. And area is length times width. So 10 times 10 times 10 is 100. And so instead of moving it one place, we notice it's squared. And so squared means to take that one place, that value of 10, and square it, which is 10 times 10, which is the same thing as area, length times width. You can think of it like that. So 10 times 10 is truly 100 because we're talking about squared units, which talks about 100. Notice there's 2 zeros, so truly it's 2 place values. So instead of moving one place, because we're talking about squared units, we have to go take that one place of 10 and go 10 times 10, which gets me 100, which is truly one place, 2 places, because there's 2 zeros. And we're moving it, because we're moving it to the left, we're going to follow that direction. We're going to go to the left. All right, so here's my decimal. It's at the end, and I'm going to move it 2 places to the left. Once, twice. So 125 millimeters squared is the same thing as 1.25 centimeters squared. Let's take a look at the last example here. We'll do this in a different color. And this time we have 4.5 meters, and notice it's squared as well. So that gives us a clue. We're talking about area because we see squared units. And we want to go to centimeters squared, so I need to go over one place, 2 places. And so 2 places represents 100. But I'm going in squared units, so if I pull a little square off to the side, and I go length times width, which is 100 times 100. And where did I get that 100? By moving it one place, 2 places. So there's 2 zeros, 100. And if I multiply 100 times 100, whenever you're multiplying 100 times 100, you just have to count the zeros. You just go 1 times 1 is 1. And then I count the zeros. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I write 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this number represents 10,000. And if I count my zeros, 100 squared is 10,000. So if I count my zeros, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that represents 4 places. So instead of going 2 places, because I'm talking about squared units, now I'm going to go 4 places. And so I'm going to go 4 places in this direction. I'm going to the right. So here I go, 4 places to the right. And I'm going to have to rewrite this number, 4.5. Give myself some more space. So here's my decimal, 4 places to the right. There's 1 place. 2 places, so I'll add a 0. 3 places, add another 0. And finally, 4 places, add the final 0. So my answer, 4.5 meters squared, is the same thing as 45,000 centimeters squared. And that's our lesson on area.